I'd like to make a special announcement. All registered LC students have the opportunity to win a book when you sign in. That link can be found in the chat box. So just don't forget to turn off your mics and turn on your camera. With that said, I like to welcome you to our virtual leadership academy. Now, our phenomenal speaker for today is Martha Hernandez. Here are a few things you should know about her. Martha is an Oakland, Chavinda, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, Michoacan native. She's the founder and CEO of Made BOS Incorporated, a career pathing talent app. Martha is also a best-selling author of the book I Have What It Takes, a boxing trainee, singer, and songwriter. Aside from being very talented, Martha has a bachelor's degree in sociology and Spanish literature. She's graduated from Mills College Institute for Civic Leadership Program, as well as Management Leadership for Tomorrow, and completed an AI Business Strategy certification from MIT, just to name a few of her accomplishments. With that said, please put your hands together for Marta Hernandez and let's give her a warm Palomino welcome.
Thank you, everybody. I'm hearing you and your aplausos, and I'm really excited to be here. Um, Thank you for the introduction, Alan. I really appreciate you for that. And the organizing team, thank you for inviting me. I will have a presentation for you, but I do want to set the stage that if at any point you have a question, you want to ask it, you can do it directly into the actual box, or you can just raise your hand or say it. I'm okay with stopping and addressing, but at the end we'll have an opportunity to do Q&A. So let me share my screen because I want you to see what I've prepared for you. It's as simple as it can be because I don't want to overcomplicate the beauty of AI. All right, so let's just present. I think this would work. So when I was approached about this opportunity, I thought, oh my God, what can I share about AI, artificial intelligence? There's so much, right? Technology is at the forefront. Everything we do, it involves technology. So there's clearly a lot we can talk about. When I came back to the team on what the topic could be, I really wanted to get down to the real and most critical issue with technology, and that's access, particularly as it pertains to communities of color and specifically Latinos. So, how does AI and technology impact you now, and how can we catch up? So, that's our little title. Now, those that participate, whether on chat or when I ask a question, if you unmute yourself and I can see you and you answer my questions, you're also going to be winning books. So let's go ahead and participate as much as possible. But for those of you who've had a phone, which of these phones have you had or have you seen, like physically touched? Anyone?
I've held the Motorolas. The Motorolas are very it's a common or very common at the beginning of that phone era, that touch phone era when it was starting.
I'm like, what were you, like 3?
Probably, yeah.
So iterations of phones, right, is an example of how technology has been developed over time. It's changed our entire ecosystem, the way we see work, the way we see communities, the way we see access. Access to food in itself has been impacted by technology. Every food chain possibility has been impacted by technology. So in a positive way, right? There are a lot of individuals in the industry that believe technology has taken jobs away, but it's actually the contrary. It's brought a lot of opportunity, but there's a little problem there. So we're going to go into that. Thank you for sharing, Ellen. So when I was little, we didn't have phones. I didn't see a phone until I actually came to the United States in the 90s. I was born in Oakland, California, but I grew up in a very small town, and it's pronounced Chavinda in Michoacan. And on that photo that you see here is my sister and I. We had a little business going. We were entrepreneurs since our very um, early years. So we were at the plaza, and what you see in the background is actually it's shoe boxes. We did not sell shoes, but we took a photo by the shoe box puesto. And what we were doing at the time, my mom, actually, my dad was um, uh, a farm worker in Salinas, and he would only come to Mexico to see us once a year for about a month. And we actually hated it because he was like a stranger to us. So we weren't that happy about it. Um, Over time, though, we lost contact with my dad. And this is when I was about 7 years old. Um, we didn't know what happened to him. So eventually we found him. He was a wino and lived in the streets of Arizona because my dad followed what at the time they call it the jornada. So he was working in celery and lettuce. And so if work was no longer available in Salinas, then they would go to Yuma, Arizona. And in Yuma, Arizona is when my dad's alcoholism problem became more prominent, and he forgot that he had a family and he had to live in the streets for years. So we thought my dad died. No one ever knew what happened to him, and that's what it was. So to survive, my mom had to do many things. She was a seamstress, and so I learned how to sew and be really creative with quinceañera dresses and wedding dresses and all that kind of stuff. I'm still really good at it. I love it. Um, but we also began thinking about an additional set of income because my mom had to take us out from el colegio so we can go into we had to go into public schools, and we didn't want to leave our friends. So we thought of an idea. Well, what if we start a business together and we work on weekends so we can pay for school? And so we did. We started selling chicken outside our house. My mom had a little table, and inside in a little living room with the patio, we would have the live chicken. And I won't go through the process of how we did that because then it's going to gross you out. You won't want to eat chicken for years, which is what I did. I didn't want to eat chicken for years. But we had an entire assembly, and my job was to clean the chicken from the inside. So you can just imagine, I was just an 8-year-old. Um, our weekends were tough. Mother's Day were tough. Holidays were tough. We were working, waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning, only because we wanted an education. And I know many of you do the same, right? You cross the border, you do whatever you have to do because you want an education. So early on, I understood the hustle to be able to get the things that I wanted to get in life. Later, we became really, really creative. We started delivering chicken on this bike. Had our little bags. I would hold a couple, and we would take chicken to the elders who couldn't come to our house to buy it. So we would make extra money doing that. Over time, I write this in the book. I have what it takes. I realized that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and selling chicken was just one way in which I could actually drive that ganas forward. But if I really think back, the beginnings of where that started was when I would see the lady selling nopales at the plaza and passing by our street, knocking on every door and asking, "No compra nopales." At the time, I thought I wanted to be like her. That was like my dream job. This woman was the woman that I wanted to be growing up. And I valued her work so much. I would mimic her. Just imagine this little girl with the cubeta outside, my little knocking on doors, selling nopales. My family thought it was hilarious, so they made me do it over and over again. But I realized again early on that with ganas, you could potentially get somewhere. And I saw women working hard and getting where they wanted to get, right, to survive. When I got to the US, life was tough. I didn't speak English. I didn't want to go to college because I didn't know how. And my mom promised that we were just going to come look for my dad. And so it was only going to be 5 years. So middle school, all the way to the beginning of high school, when I was in ninth grade, I thought we're going to go back to Mexico. So why do I need to learn English? I actually don't even like this community. I hated it. But we found my father. And eventually, my mom said, we're not going back. And then I had to figure out a way and started seeking programs, began learning English, began classes on the weekends, and also community college classes in the summer to make up for all those classes I didn't have because, hey, I wasn't going to go to college. I was okay being, I was going to go back to Chavinda. I was going to be an entrepreneur in Chavinda, eventually get married and make my family proud, right? That's usually sort of the vision that most very close communities, Catholic communities have of us Latina women or Mexicanas. So that's what I was going to do. But eventually I ended up going to college and found incredible mentors. I got pretty competitive in high school. I ended up being the valedictorian, etc., and learned that I had a gift for identifying talent. Like I could see the trueness of people, their authenticity, and why they wanted to grow and develop in life. So I became a talent acquisition and talent manager. Anyone knows what that is? What is talent acquisition? There's another
I
word.
don't.
It's recruiting. Who knows what recruiting is? Oh, those are good words. All right. So when you apply for jobs, usually the first department in any organization that sees your resume or your application is the recruitment team. The recruitment team is part of a talent acquisition department. And the talent acquisition department runs everything from where we post the job all the way to who gets the job and why, the entire selection. So I got really good at that and started working with really big companies in addressing talent pipelines, right? Like giving the job, promoting people, etc. That's where I got introduced to technology because as a leader, as an executive in talent management, I had to buy technology where people could apply for the job. I had to buy technology where we could select the person, had to buy technology to do performance management, performance reviews, and give you information as an employee how you're doing. And that's where I was exposed to technology. At the time, I could only understand based on the usability or how we used it at the organizations that I was. But I didn't really think much of it until I worked for a company, Mi Pueblo, that was primarily Latinos and Mexicanos in the Bay Area in California. And what I realized is that in that organization was the first time that I saw Latinos making over 100,000 a year. Most of the time, I mean, my dad made like 27,000 a year, and I was happy with my 60,000 a year. I thought I had made it. And then when I saw my boss, 250,000 a year, Latino at the time, he was like 37 years old. I was like, wait a minute, I can make that money too. And started understanding that based on your knowledge and your learning, not in college, not throughout your career, that you had more opportunity and leverage to move up. So I thought, oh my God, did all these people here at Mi Pueblo get a degree? Why are they making so much money? And I realized that the owner truly believed in people's development, that many of them had started as janitors, as meat cutters, as cashiers, but yet they had an opportunity to grow. And I then thought, imagine if there was this mobile app, because at the time, mobile apps were starting to be the thing. Imagine if there was this thing that you could do through your phone and it would tell you based on the company that you worked where you could be and how much you could make. nothing limiting you, not even your manager, just big picture. And you could dream really, really big, and then we can give you the plan, exactly what to do, what class to take, what project to get involved, what position to apply next. And that's where the idea of my company, Made Boss, got introduced. Made by own self. Um, I have another company that I started in 2020 throughout the pandemic. It's the ESO Ventures, and we invest in small businesses. I won't tell you more about that now, but just so you know, one little spark to start a company, and now I'm considered a serial entrepreneur. But why did I start Made Boss? Okay, I started Made Boss because I saw, not just at mi pueblo, from mi pueblo, I went to other organizations that were not necessarily only Latino. I saw that in general, people that come from low wage, low disadvantage, survival communities, we call it underinvested, you can call it whatever you want, poverty, people that come from poverty were more likely to be unemployed. Like, let that sink in. We are more likely to be unemployed, meaning fired of our jobs, than to be promoted. And I could not believe that. This is a fact, this is data. So when I saw that, when I learned that, again, as a talent acquisition manager, I wanted to make impact and drive solution. Mind you, I'm not a software engineer. I knew very little about technology other than the implementations that I had done because of my job. But I started drawing on a freaking little paper. I actually bought little, you know, those uh, index cards. I still have those index cards. The index cards, I started drawing what it would look like. Well, the first is, you know, you're going to log in, and then you're going to do a little assessment, and then we're going to. So I had like 50 of them on my table and said, one day I'm going to build this thing. I didn't have the money, but I said, one day I'm going to build this thing. Eventually, I was able to plan this process. In the book, I talk about the entire journey to get to being a CEO and fund myself, right? Bootstrap, it's called, to be able to build this big vision that I had. So eventually, it became a thing. Then we had what this is called right now. It has it's a specific name where you can actually draw it. You can click on it, but you can draw it. Anyone it has an idea on what it's called? What is this called? The process in developing an app. Any ideas? It's called wireframing. You're framing what it is that you want people to see when they act and engage with your actual technology. So we started wireframing. I hired this guy. He did this thing for me. They added colors, and I was like, oh my God, my dream come true. This is exactly what I'm building, right? I'm building a mobile app. So essentially, it was giving people the vision of where they could be, how much money they could make, the different careers within the company that we're at, to apply into those jobs. But guess what? Once I built this product, I couldn't get funding and I couldn't get customers. Why? Because I wasn't a technical founder, and because I didn't have connections. I didn't know anyone in the industry, and because there's a lot of structural racism and bias against people like me, Latina in technology. Less than 1% of us get funding. So I knew the structural problem, but I wasn't going to give up. So year one, no customers, no money. Year two, we got a little bit of money, and I'm going to tell you more about that. And then year two, I realized I need some backbone. I need people to see me as an expert in this thing. So I saved up and I went ahead and I paid for my certification, my learning to get a certification from MIT, leading institute in the world in AI and technology. And in 6 months, I got my certification. I knew nothing. Well, I knew very little. And I came out with a certification in AI. But I didn't know anything about AI. I didn't really understand what that meant. Well, technology, okay, what is that? So if we go by the book definition, if you Google AI, artificial intelligence, what in the freaking world is that? You'll read the actual description. Can dramatically improve the efficiencies of our workplaces and can augment the work that humans can do. What does that mean? Any one of you?
It's supposed to make our lives easier.
Makes your life easier. How? Give me an example. Somebody other than Alan. Thank you, Alan. You already got a book. How is it supposed to make your life easier? Give me examples.
Makes things faster and more reliable.
Faster and more reliable. Plenty of studies. I'll give you an example in law. So artificial intelligence is the ability of machines, right? It's code, it's a language that you go to school and you learn, react, all these things, right? You learn this language that through a code, you can tell the machine what to do. So I have a sociology background. In sociology, we would go out and do surveys. So I did a survey in Chavinda about political apathy, meaning people that did not want to be politically active. And so I did over 100 interviews. Those 100 interviews, I took notes. Now, to get data, an aggregate data, meaning the story with all these 100 people involved, I had to code. And back then, you know what the process was? With highlighters, I would have my codes. All the blues were the women. All the yellows were the women of a certain age. All the green. And so throughout my interviews, I kept highlighting the different codes that I had. How long do you think that took me? It took months to finish my freaking research paper, right? Because it was a lot of work. Artificial intelligence can do that through the learning of the coding that we're giving and assigning into the different things. In this case, it was words. So the ability of artificial intelligence is to grab not 100 interview results, billions, trillions of interview results, of data that's out there, collected by all the different tools that we use to drive stories, to drive sales, to drive policy. That's the impact of artificial intelligence. The machine learning, which is what I'm explaining. Artificial intelligence takes it a step further. Artificial intelligence uses that machine learning, the learning I just explained, to further the impact of technology. As an example, Siri. Siri is an artificial intelligence tool, is using information that's readily available. In this case, let's say I want to learn how to make tamales. Many of us already updated our tamale recipe. So Siri can search from all these websites, right? Available information in the internet, and will tell us how to make tamales. But not only that, Siri can also look at who's asking the question. Marta Hernandez knows my age, knows my location, knows that I'm from Michoacan. It knows a lot of things. So instead of just giving me a recipe for tamales, Siri will give me a recipe for corundas. What is corundas? Anybody? It's a type of tamal from Michoacan. It's yellow and it's a little round, but it's a specific tamal in line with my culture. That is artificial intelligence. Siri making a determination on what is best for me based on my demographic. So takes these repetitive tasks And then it frees me, the human, from having to research all of this, look through. Remember those big encyclopedias, like Latinos were big? What were they called? On Univision, they would announce them all the time. Do you remember that? Maybe you don't remember that. But anyway, that was a task. So now it takes seconds on something that used to take hours. So let's go back to this career pathing thing on why I wanted to go and build this career mobile app without having any background in technology. Let's take the example of a cashier at Walmart, which, by the way, predominantly women of color, predominantly Latina. As a cashier at Walmart, the visibility the cashier has to career pathing at Walmart is based on what's visibly available to this person. I can be a front-end manager. I can be a front-end supervisor. Maybe I can be a store director. But who's involved in that decision? The promotability of that person. Who do you think is involved? Any of you have jobs as cashiers? Who's involved in whether or not you get promoted?
The manager.
Manager. And does your manager know you that well? Like, does your manager know all the like different facets about you and how cool and freaking, you know, badass you are? Maybe not.
No, usually they hire you by how well you do in the interview.
Yeah. And sometimes life happens, right? And we have school and this is just a little job. So I'm just here to get my basic income. But I have a big dream. So I may not give my best to this job. In fact, I don't even like my manager or the people that I work with. So there's so many components that keep us from seeing ourselves in this career ladder. But you know what? Walmart is one of the biggest companies in the world. And the career ladder goes into earning close to you call it, if it's a CEO, we're talking millions of dollars a year. If you're a VP, we're talking 800,000 a year. But the cashier doesn't know that. They don't know that's available to them. So aligning all this information on your talents, your skills, they're called competencies, your abilities, to the potential of growth is lost in the process. It's up to the manager on whether or not they see your potential or whether or not you see your potential and apply for that job. And that's the biggest problem on why most of us don't get promoted. We don't verbalize, this is where I want to be, because most of us don't know where we could be. So in this particular example, we would align possibilities of careers based on the talent of the individual, where they're at, and then how fast they can get there based on education, skill sets, certifications, etc. In the traditional model, we have, again, the manager deciding. In the Made Boss model, we have a direct alignment through technology to seeing opportunity and hopefully developing people faster. Now, I'm giving you an example at Walmart. But what about Google? What about technology companies? If we have a problem at Walmart in growth and career and development, imagine at organizations like Google. Access for people like you and me to work in organizations like that. In fact, only 7% of Latinos in the US work in tech. And I'm not talking tech roles like software engineers. That's even lower. I'm talking work in tech. You could be a janitor in tech. You could be a marketing manager in tech. You could be a recruiter in tech. You could be a technician fixing air conditioning. in a technology company. All of those roles, only 7%. And here's where I'm getting with this. Why is this critical and important? Read this, and then I need one of you to tell me, why is this a problem? I'm going to give you a couple minutes. And when you're ready, why is this a problem? Only 7% of Latinos in technology, yet Latinos are at the forefront of technology adoption. What in the freaking world is that? What does that mean? I'm going to start calling people, so. What does forefront of technology adoption? What does that mean?
Is it possible that you mean that Hispanics and Latinos are just too obsessed with media consumption and they're not expanding their mind with the technology?
What is media consumption? Tell me about that. What does that mean?
Like escapism, and with technology, like we're watching just videos and on Facebook or Instagram and stuff like that. Instead of focusing on how it was developed, we're just consuming rather not analyzing where it comes from.
Excellent, 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 excellent. We are using it. We use this more than any other group. We buy it. We are spending our valuable time using things that others are doing. Who are the others? Who are the others? Look at this. Oops. 71% of those in technology are white. White men, for the most part, are creating these tools that we use. Every day, every hour. We are not making the money of ourselves. Somebody else is. And here's the biggest problem with that. Back in the day, Kodak. Who remembers that organization? What is Kodak? What did they do? Say it again.
The cameras.
Cameras. Excellent. Yeah, those, those reusable, and they had a bunch of things, right? And the film, this is before we all had our phones and cameras on our phones. Back then, when they developed technology to take photos, the photos could only work with people that had lighter skin, white people. If you were dark brown, black, you would not have been able to be photographed. So using this example I just gave you, what is the problem that we're facing other than somebody else is making money on this, right? We use it, but they build it. What is the other problem with us using it and not building it?
We're not getting paid for it.
We're not getting paid for it, and we're not represented in the solutions. So our organization, I mean, our communities don't necessarily benefit. Here's another example. This is a recent example. You know those DNA sample kits that where you can learn where you come from, and it shows you like the map from the world. I really wanted to do that because I am so proud of my indigenous roots that I want to be 100% Purepecha, which is the indigenous group that comes from Michoacan. But I know somewhere down the line, I'm also from, Spanish blood because my last name is Hernandez. So, I mean, you can't deny that, right? So I wanted to do this thing, but guess what? It doesn't tell me when you look at Native American, it's exactly what it says. It won't tell me what type of indigenous group I'm from. So there's this company called Somos that is looking at DNA in Latino America to identify indigenous DNA. Latinos, Mexicanos built that. Because our needs were not being met by the companies that began 10 years ago doing DNA testing. And what's the problem with that? When there's DNA testing, there's solution to disease. There's solution to ongoing community and culture-based issues like diabetes. Why do we have more cases in the Latino community? So if there's not enough research and scientific data through the collection of DNA and the ability to understand that data through AI, we won't address the problems that are facing our communities. And that for me is bigger than monetizing or making money off of something. We are not winning because we're more concerned in our social media presence, in the videos we're watching, than we are about learning how this data is being utilized and how it can benefit us collectively or us individually. But it's not the end of the world, y'all. Aún están a tiempo. We're in a really good space to make significant change. And I say this because I believe that you can. You can start doing very important things today, like being here, learning about this topic, and what you're gonna do after this presentation. I know that every single one of you are intrigued and you're gonna learn more about it. And that's how you're gonna start. You're gonna start small. You're gonna start Googling words every day. If you don't know it, you're gonna Google it. You're gonna start building your network. Who do I know that knows about technology, working in tech? You're gonna start by going into LinkedIn and you're gonna add me. You're gonna connect with me and you're gonna say, hey, Marta, I heard your presentation. I heard your speech. I want to one day be, and you're gonna tell me what you wanna be. Then you're gonna know all the people that I know. And one day you're gonna say, hey, I heard you 5 years ago. I'm now done with my bachelor's, my master's, and I'm looking for, or I want to do. You're gonna start small. Eventually, you're gonna build your network. And it starts with building your network with people like me. You connect. Oh, I'm from Michoacan too. Oh, I'm from Zamora. It's right next to Chavinda. Oh, I'm from South America. Whatever it is, you're going to find a way to connect sin vergüenza without, I don't know, what is sin vergüenza? Without fear, without, somebody help me out here.
Not to be
Without
shy.
embarrassment.
Yeah, without embarrassment. Don't be shy about this, right? Over time, over the years, we've been left behind from this technology boost. You deserve our attention to get you where you need to be a lead and a representative in technology. So you ask for that. But you only do that by showing up. You can't just be like, gimme, 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 gimme. You have to show up. So here's how you show up. Today, there's a talk. You showed up. You get points. Friday, there's another conversation with somebody else that's in the technology space. You show up. When I started showing up, and I'm not talking like back then when I didn't speak English, I'm talking 5 freaking years ago. I didn't understand 70% of the things that people were talking about. But you know what I did? And what I still do? I write everything down. I go back. I research it. I want to understand it. When I was growing up and I was learning English, I heard several people call me ignorant. I didn't know what the word was. But once I knew what the word ignorant was, I said to myself, I will never let anyone call me or anyone else in my present that word. Because ignorance is not a choice, especially when we don't have the resources. So if you got a phone, my friend, you better be learning every day. So show up, be consistent, not just like right now because I'm interested and I'm inspired. You have to give yourself that commitment. Give yourself that gift every day. I'm going to do this for 30 minutes. I do that with myself. Every day I'm committed to my fitness. No matter what I have going on, I drop what I have going on, unless it's an emergency, I'll tell you about that. But I show up to my boxing, right now I'm doing Fighter Fit, to my Fighter Fit class. The days that I feel like not doing it those are the days that I know I'm gonna have the better result. So I show up. My body fights my brain, but my brain knows that every day I'm adding, that consistency is adding to the result. I hate doing burpees. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. But when I do them with everything that I have because I know they will give me results and I'm consistent. I read. I don't read books. I could tell you, I would be lying if I said to you, oh, I'm on my 7th book this week or this month, or, I read 20 books a year. My family didn't even make it out of elementary school. So that wasn't a behavior that I learned to have. But let me tell you what I do to learn. I read online. When I do my Google, I spend time understanding things. The same with books. I may not read the whole thing. I read a couple pages and then I come back another day. I read another couple pages because I know how I best understand things. I do have a goal though, that this year I want to finalize this year I read this many books. I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 this year. Look how long it took me to realize how important that is. You're early on in your career. You have to be ahead of the game. If I'm here now, imagine where you could be if you start applying some of these things that took me years to learn. So learn. You may say, I don't want to do more school. It's expensive. That's okay. School is not the end of it, but learning is important. So anything and everything. Ask questions, show up, make sure you're understanding the thing. If you don't understand it, ask questions again. And don't be shy about that. I was shy for a really long time. And you know what? I was hiding, pretending that I knew and I understood, and living this life of like, I'm a tech founder. I got this. And inside, I was miserable because I was seeing everybody else be so successful until I started being authentic and real about where I was. Oh, I don't know this, so I need to learn it. And then I started learning it. But I had to be really, really patient. Really, really patient. So be patient with yourself. This is a journey. You're not going to learn everything tomorrow. You're going to get a job in technology tomorrow. Maybe you are. I don't know. You might be a superstar. But everything takes time. And eventually you will get there. Eventually it will happen. If you have the right intention and you're consistent and you're learning, there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't happen. It will happen if you do as you plan. Be generous with your knowledge. Once you know the thing, share it. In fact, 70% of the retention in our brain, how we retain information, is by sharing it with others. So you'll go with your friends and you'll tell them, hey, did you know? Anything that you learned today, go and share it. That's what's going to stay in your mind. Represent. When you show up, don't just show up, be at the corner and all quiet. I'm going to slap you for that. When you show up with dignity. Look at all the ancestors that you have behind you. You represent us all. So you proudly show up as who you are, because you represent an incredible history of warriors and fighters and intelligent people. We freaking invented the zero. That's what makes coding work. The number zero, if you do your research. And once you represent, you influence. You don't go and ask for permission. You go and say, here's what I like to do. Here's what I like you to do. And that is what changes everything and anything you do. When you have the ability to influence, the mind-blowing thing is that you have an ability to influence right now. You can influence yourself. So, that being said, when I decided to write a book, I didn't really think about, I want to write a book, I want to be an author. That wasn't a dream of mine. It just so happened. But it started with it was sort of a mini novela. At the time, let me do exit full screen. At the time when I couldn't raise capital from venture capitalists, these are the institutions that are supposed to like help people like me with big ideas, right? When I couldn't get money to start my business, I learned about this platform. In this case, it was Republic. You know how when our community goes through something and then you do a fundraiser, those little fundraisers where like you donate money and then they give that big amount to the person, like the paletero that was beaten a few months ago. Those are platforms, again, driven by technology and machine learning and AI. So the collection of funds now became available for companies like mine to raise from our communities. So I went ahead and did a capital raise and raised 126,000 from almost 400 investors, primarily Latino, primarily women who had never, ever, ever invested in their lives. They invested in my company. The reason why I bring this up is because when I was building this thing and I was raising capital, it was about a 2-month process. I needed people to know that they could invest in my company. So I started going live on Facebook, explaining what investment was, explaining why it was important for Latinos to invest in each other, invest in technology, invest in products like mine. You would think that I would have raised millions, right? Because I have a large following. I thought, I even did the math. I'm like, imagine if everybody invests $100. So I was like, we can raise the million. How many people? Oh, with 1,000 people. If everybody invests $100, easy. You know what we're good at when it's about spending $100, and I even spoke about this on my lives. When we go to the club, we spend way more than that. When you do your lashes and your nails, you spend way more than that. When you buy your Gucci belt, you spend more than that. How sad that we couldn't freaking invest in us, in ideas, in technology. I was getting questions about how I was going to use the money for $50. Like, you spend that on 5 people when the paletero comes to your house. You see the disconnect? So when I raised this capital, I started telling my story, why I wanted to build this app, why people needed a opportunity to grow and develop in their jobs, why it's an institutional problem and we need accessibility to seeing where people could be, why this tool was necessary. So I started doing the mini novela. Every Monday I would write something and like post it and then do a little live. And Ovi, someone you've heard from, who actually made the connection for me to start writing, this story in this book, was like, Marta, you should write a book. And I'm like, well, I don't really, that's not in my plans. I'm really focused on raising this capital. And I was like, but you know what? I wrote, I think at the time it was like 10 capítulos of a mini novela. I sent it, and that night by like 5 a.m. I already had a ton of little messages on Messenger, on Facebook. And he said, Marta, I've cried, I've laughed, I've gone through every emotion with your story. You have to put this in a book. And so that's where the book, I Have What It Takes, that's where it was actually born, out of this mini novela, through my struggles of raising capital in my community to be able to start my company. I can tell you where we're at now. I'm at my second venture. Made Boss is doing really, really well. I haven't had to raise any more capital from anyone. We have customers across the nation, New York, Texas, DC, California. I have a tech team in Paraguay, I have a team in Mexico, I have a team here in California. And I'm not gonna say that everything is pretty, right? That everything is easy. It's really difficult. It still is. But I will never give up the opportunity to do something different and necessary and fight for that, because I believe we deserve that. We deserve the opportunity to do that. And so I hope that today, and my experience and my anecdotes, not just inspire you, because there's a lot of inspiration out there. I want you to take action. I want you to learn every day. I want you to be interested in a career in technology. I want you to become software engineers. I want you to build solutions for people like you, because you know us best. I want you to make money so you can invest in your friends, in each other, so we can build our wealth and capital creation in our communities, regardless of where you live, de acá o de allá. Money is money, and it can be and made. So with that said, I will take any questions that you may have. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me this opportunity. I did I know that some of you may ask about my music because I do have a music component. So if that's something that's of interest, I can go into detail on that. But thank you again. Any questions?
Did you ever feel like discouraged? And if you did, how did you like overcome that feeling of?
Repeat the question again. It was a little difficult to hear you. Is it Darinka?
Yes. Did you ever feel like discouraged? Or and if you did, like and if you did, how did you overcome that
Girl. So you know what I thought? I thought that people that make it, that they're like always at a high, right? Like everything's easy. Like they get all these opportunities to just go and go and go and make progress and be successful. But I was wrong. I've gone to conferences where I've listened to the founders of companies like Twitter and Asana and Facebook. And when I heard this white guy talk about one day when he had just raised, it's called a seed round, but it was about $3 million. He just raised $3 million to take his company to the next level. He said he entered into a panic attack, like a lot of anxiety, because he was afraid to not know how to use that money and fail the team. He said he was in a closet for about 5 hours before he could digest the thing that had just happened. And that reminded me of me. So I no longer saw them as like incredible humans who have it all together. I didn't have to be that. So yes, every day there is a little bit of discouragement when I don't have the right access, when I don't get the appointment I wanted, when I have difficulty, with my son on certain things, like all of that, there's discouragement. We're in a freaking pandemic. That's discouraging, right? When I see some of my friends just having lots of fun, and here I am, I'm still working like really, really, really late at night. And I'm seeing very little progress or very little excitement in the work that I'm doing from my external networks. But the wins, Darinka, that's what really balances everything. There are little discouragements, but the wins are so freaking huge that every day, even if there were like little discouragements for the last 30 days, one win at the magnitude of what I'm seeing is freaking worth it. And you will see that when you launch into entrepreneurship, or when you have the career of your dreams, the career that you may not even know you're going to go into. You're going to see that it's all worth it when you follow your passion.
Thank you. And what made you want to start like music?
So when I was little, I was always in talent shows and dancing folklorico, and I've always loved music. But when we were coming to the US to look for my dad, we were on a van with my uncle. He's the one that brought us, and the van broke down. So we had to go from wherever we were, I don't remember, I was little, to the border because my sisters and my mom didn't have papers. So I did, because I was born in Oakland. So I was going to go with my uncle to cross the border with him using my papers, and my mom and my sisters had a coyote. So we had to get there because we had the appointment, and my uncle was going to meet us there. So we went on a bus, en un camión. And in the bus, there was this guy who had a guitar, and he was singing and playing. And I learned one of the songs. And I remember, like, I started singing, and next thing you know, I was the only one singing. And people were like, otra, otra, otra. And here I was singing, I was singing another song. era curiosa because it was a 9-year-old singing, and and people liked it, and I loved what it felt like. So when I got to the US, we would go to parties with my uncles, and if they had live mariachi, Martita, cántate una. Like they will always send me to sing. So it began like that, just like a hobby. But when it became professional is when I was about 6 months pregnant, and Univision had back then it was Festival del Mariachi, and I sent my video singing. It was like a popurrí ranchero, and I got the call. It was like what is now American Idol, and they flew me to Disney World with 6 others. What was interesting is that they were all professional mariachi singers. I was the only one who wasn't. They all had a voice coach, and I didn't. So that gave me a freaking boost to be like, okay, I know how to sing. I got this. I didn't win. I was like number 4 or whatever. But when I came back home, I started singing with more confidence. And I also got myself a coach to know how to do falsetes, because I didn't know how to do falsetes. So I wanted to learn how to do it. So I got a coach. I learned how to do falsetes. And then I got a gig with a local mariachi to sing for a ballet folklorico. And I was the singer of the ballet folklorico. And eventually, I said to myself, one day I'm gonna write my songs, and I'm gonna do a CD, and I'm gonna prove that when you want to do something, right? I was thinking about building my company. If I can do that, I can do the company thing. So I was already an executive, and I started saving, and I paid for it all. It's all my music, it's all my lyrics, and I produced it.
Yeah,
So there's,
yeah, oh,
sorry,
sorry. You go
I was
ahead.
gonna, there's a question in the chat that says, how long did it take to get your AI certification?
Thank you. So for an AI certification, there are no specific requirements other than for this particular one, you had to be an executive, meaning vice president at a company. So that was a requirement. So if we were to say not everyone can get that particular certification, but you can take a class in AI. And usually a class may be a semester long. It may be an introduction, right? Like a 3-month thing. So for me, it took 6 months. And I met with my class every week. Mind you, I'm a full-time mom, single mom. I was building my company, and I had a job. And I was doing mariachi gigs, singing on the weekends, because eventually I was like, I'm going to leave this job and I'm going to start my business. So I need to save money, and I need to look at this called diversify your income. I need to look at other ways to make money so that I'm not reliant on my job. So I was doing all of that and taking this class.
Thank you. That's pretty cool.
Any other questions? I think we're just about, we're a little past the hour.
For example, did you experience any kind of discrimination or racism for being Latina or a woman while you were like doing all your stuff?
Yeah. So yeah, of course, I still do. When I used to show up with my co-founder, he's an MIT graduate, and crazy enough, I met him through mariachi, because he had a mariachi here in Oakland. He's from the Central Valley, family from Zacatecas. And I met him, he was playing at the mariachi. I sang with the mariachi, and then eventually I learned that he was a software engineer and he needed to get a job, and I helped him with that, blah, blah, blah. When we used to show up to meetings, the first thing that investors would ask was, where is your technical person? And he was right there with me. When I would show up with my hair straight, and people thought I was Asian, especially white men, I would get a lot more questions that were technical, that were specific to my background, that were specific to my idea. I remember specifically this one day that my hair is really curly, so like nice and beautiful curly. I started embracing it more now as an adult, just because I'm just so proud of being who I am. I love my skin tone. I love everything. So anyway, I showed up with my curly hair because I didn't have time to straighten it. And I remember one of the guys asked me with like this awe. He looked at me and he's like, "You thought of this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I thought of this." Those little mini microaggressions that say, how could you think of this, right? You don't look like the person that could think of things like this. There's so many examples that I can give you on just pure bias that I didn't look like or sound like. When I would pitch, the first thing that the pitch investors, when they give you feedback, would say to me, "Wow, you're so eloquent." I was like, "What the fuck is eloquent?" So I'm like researching what that means, right? And I'm like, I have an accent and I know that I'm not necessarily the best at speaking. Why would they say that to me? They have a different expectation. So yes, there's a lot of that out there. I could fight it, and I started pointing it out before they even had it in their minds. So I would start my meetings with, "I know you're probably thinking, how is it that a Latina without a software background is building a technology company? Well, let me tell," and then I would tell the story. I started addressing their biases before they categorized me, because again, my machine learning, right, was already becoming AI. All the things I've seen, I'm like, I'm going to change it before it becomes a thing, or the reason why they say no to me. So I started addressing it at the beginning.
Thank you so much for answering that question.
All right. I think we're good. Awesome. Well, here's my info. If you ever have a question, need direction, if I'm not able to help you personally, we will figure out a way. I'm interested in helping people with ganas because we need you. We need you to be brave and bold and put yourself out there. Learn and then go do it. Do it and then go teach others. Teach others and then influence. You have the capacity to be here. You have the capacity to do way bigger things than you're thinking right now. So I'll see you at the other side of the hill when we're celebrating you and I go and hear you speak about your journey and your experience building your enterprise or becoming whoever you become.
Now, before you guys go, I'd like to give a special thanks to our president, the president of Laredo College, Dr. Ricardo Solis. Thank you. I know you took the time out of your busy schedule to join us. Laredo College appreciates us. The students appreciate it very much. And, thank you, Martha, for that wonderful, wonderful presentation. Very helpful. And thank you, students, for joining us. Don't forget that we have the speaker series coming up on April 20 and the workshop coming up on April 27. This concludes our Virtual Leadership Academy. Have a wonderful day.